My name is Anna Kuwahara. I started a nonprofit called Shane's Heart. It is a nonprofit organization that works to support kids and families children who were born with congenital heart defects. Congenital heart disease is I think it's still the number one congenital disease or defect that is common amongst newborns. So it's very common I don't want to say very common, but it's most common to have a heart defect, and it can range anywhere from a hole in the heart that might heal itself to something very severe like Shane, who my foundation is named after. So created a foundation really almost 10 years ago, after my son, who was born with a very rare congenital heart disease that we did not know about. And he ended up passing away 2 days after he was born, after all these complications from this heart disease. But the hospital that we worked with was UCLA, and they are just incredible human beings. These doctors are the most amazing people, just so kind and so loving and so smart, and they're just such good people. And we appreciated so much care that they gave our son, that we wanted to do things in honor of his life. So we started this foundation called Shane's Heart, the Shane McCusker Foundation, and we work to provide gift cards of $25 to patients. Families travel all over the place to get treatment. Sometimes it's urgent, sometimes it's a repeated appointment, but families have to travel from all over the place. Congenital heart disease doesn't discriminate against people of race, ethnicity, gender. It can happen really to anybody. So yeah, so we'll help with gas cards, we'll help with a meal, we'll help with housing if families need a place to stay. We also donate to their cardiology symposium every year that they put on. And then we've also sent kids with congenital heart disease to places like Legoland or Disneyland after they've gone through some treatments and want to have some fun. So we're a small foundation, but I think even the little bit goes the longest way, so.
Wow, that is all so incredible and inspiring, and I hope you guys keep getting bigger and bigger, because everything you just listed is amazing. And I'm so sorry about your son, but that's so powerful that you created a whole organization.
Yeah, thank you.
From him. Clearly he was your inspiration. Have you had any mentors or role models along the way?
Well, I think really what sparked it all was, when our son died, we didn't want his memory to die with him, right? We wanted to give him a life that he didn't necessarily get on this earth. So the inspiration really came from him, like just wanting to keep his memory alive, and then also give back and to help children who are like him, because Shane very much could have survived the surgery, but he would have had multiple surgeries in his life, and he would have been probably limited to how much cardio he could do. I don't know what sports would have looked like for him. And myself, I have a huge sports background. My husband at the time had a huge sports background, and not that we wouldn't have supported our kid if he didn't want to do sports, but 2 days or a day after he was born, they were preparing us for a life where he wasn't going to be able to elevate his heart to a certain level. So, we just want to make sure that children who have, the defects or complications of the heart can live as normal of a life as possible. And if we can help that in any way possible, that's what we want to do.
That is I mean, just everything you're doing, it's just incomparable.
Thank you.
So you guys started this nonprofit fearlessly. What would you tell a girl who wants to start her own company or maybe a nonprofit, but she feels like she's too young or too inexperienced?
I mean, I really don't think age has anything to do with wanting a desire to start anything, right? I think it's all about, I had to reach out to my network. So, you know, I reached out to my family. My father is an accountant who he does a lot of work with other nonprofit organizations just in his spare time. So I asked him a lot for some help on what he knew about starting a nonprofit organization. There's so many little things. I mean, you just have to start asking questions. And I think that's where anyone who has never done this before just needs to start asking. So, you know, go to people who you might know who work with nonprofits, or if you're thinking about starting a business, you know, doing what you're doing right now, you're reaching out to people and asking these questions, and that's really where the learning happens. I mean, rely on each other. And I think that, you know, this generation, your generation, is so inspiring to me because you guys have such great ideas and you are very fearless in the sense of like going out there and asking for, you know, this type of education, or asking the questions that are going to create change. So I think, you know, what you are doing at a very young age is super inspiring and super beneficial for teaching people your age, you know, what to do. You're doing it.
Thank you. And I mean, like you said, you just have to keep passing it down, and more women will hopefully become trailblazers.
Yeah. I definitely also just like ask my friends too. I mean, I have friends that are attorneys who've worked on, um, you know, nonprofit bylaws. And so we had to create a bunch of things in this process. We created a board, like an internal board. And then we also created an advisory board, and the advisory board, we brought in doctors from UCLA. We brought in marketing people like that have a marketing background to help us with our fundraising. But you just create this circle amongst your people that are also interested or invested in your cause, and you just rely on their expertise as well. So yeah, pull in as many people as you can with your mission or your goal of your company or your nonprofit. But I really think that if there's a cause and there's a passion behind it, you can find the people that you need to help drive it forward.
100%. And it sounds like one of the first things you did was gather a team and a lot of people to help you. So what would you tell a girl who wants to start something is the most important first step in starting a company or nonprofit?
What was that? You kind of broke up. So for
Oh,
starting a,
sorry.
no, it's okay.
To start a company or nonprofit, what would you say is the most important first step?
First step. Well, again, like, what is your mission, right? What do you want? What is the purpose of the business or the organization that you're going to drive forward? Okay, so for instance, mine was, I really wanted to focus on children with congenital heart disease and give them some type of reprieve when they're in the hospital or getting them to doctor's appointments or anything. So it's like identifying what is it that you want to do, and then you can always expand. But I think finding a goal or a mission to start off with is one key point, because the bigger you get, the more successful your organization becomes, or the more like the bigger attention that it starts getting, you can open it up. You know, if you start making more money or you start getting more donations, you can open up what you're doing as you're going along. But I think going in with a very specific like idea is a really good starting point, because you know, like, okay, I'm going to just focus on this for now. And then once that grows, you start, you know, doing other things. we started with just, I'm trying to remember, actually, this was 10 years ago that this happened. So it's funny, Shane's birthday is actually tomorrow. So he would be 10
Oh my
tomorrow.
gosh.
Yeah. And I was reading, so we have a website, shanesheart.com. And I was rereading the story that I posted for his life, just to give background to what had happened to us. And I don't even remember some of that stuff that happened because
Really?
it was so long ago. But I mean, reading it again, you definitely brings back memories. Our first goal was actually to just donate to the symposium. We wanted to just give some money to the doctors. The symposium is for the professionals and they come and they hear from other professionals in the cardiology community. So originally, we wanted to support these doctors who are going to be working on these children to help, prolong their lives or to make their lives better. But then from that, we raised enough money to donate the money that we wanted to there. So then it was like, okay, what else could we do? Now let's do gift cards, right? So the gift cards have actually been so like necessary. And so the UCLA community is always saying how much they appreciate it. So that's why a lot of our funds are now just driven there. But, we were able to raise enough money to do that. And so then we started doing, like kind of like a Make-A-Wish type thing. But if we would send them to, we would send children to Disneyland or to Legoland or somewhere in California that they wanted to go once they were recovered from their surgery. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I would love to do if our foundation got really big. But right now I feel like what I'm capable of doing with it right now and what the need is those $25 gift cards are just going such a long way, that, I want to just continue to do that.
Definitely. I mean, it sounds like you're making a huge impact already in the gift cards. If they're making kids happy, that's all you need. So what do you think are the top 3 skills a girl needs to be a successful entrepreneur?
I think being someone who is not afraid to ask questions. So, I mean, I'm looking at you right now and seeing this very young, but very confident and inspirational person who just wants to learn. Like you're asking really good questions, and you're going out there and you're fearless. Like you're talking to a bunch of people. I think I've put you in touch with 2 or 3 of my friends. So, I mean, I think, first thing is asking questions. The second is, identifying what is it that you want to do, and why, have a little bit of a story behind it. And then just don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid to fail too. I mean, life is all about, this is one thing that I preach with sports, but, failure isn't necessarily a negative thing, or, like you can learn from everything you do. I mean, I've done fundraisers that have been great and some that haven't been as successful, but you learn. So just, I would say, do everything that you do when you're in pursuit of building your own company or your own nonprofit, just do it with this sense that I'm going to learn along the way. Because
They're such great pieces of advice, and especially finding that why and the passion that you want to do it is so important to remember.
Yeah, definitely find the why, because that also helps you identify what it is, and then you can go out there and really, really like sell that, right? Maybe sell isn't the right word, but you can really go out there and just show, this is what the purpose is.
Right.
And then you can get people to understand what that purpose is, and you can get people to want to learn more about it, right?
Definitely.
So
could you give a little behind the scenes for girls who want to start a nonprofit or are thinking about it? I know you mentioned before, like requesting a certification for a nonprofit?
501c3 and a 501c4 are nonprofit organizations. That is like the code for like what a charitable purpose or a charitable organization would be. I did not do a ton of that. That's why I relied on my father, who has had a lot of experience working with nonprofits. But again, that's going back to your network, right? Finding people who have done this before. Because I had no idea what it meant to become a nonprofit. I'm like, can I just say I'm fundraising? Like, but there's, if you're dealing with money, there's always going to be some type of reporting or like license, or there's something.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like I said, identify what you want. If you want to start a business, then go talk to entrepreneurs. If you want to start a nonprofit, go talk to nonprofit people who've done that before, because there's always going to be a little bit of there's going to be differences in that process. So yeah, that's what I did, relying on my network.
That is a good thing to remember.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've experienced lots of highs and lows with your nonprofit throughout the whole process. So what would you say was the most disappointing or difficult part of starting the nonprofit, and I guess being able to spread it and get the word out?
Yeah, so one of the most difficult things about starting anything is starting it, but also how do you get the word out, right? Because if you want to have a fundraiser, how do you get the word out to people to donate or to attend, right? We, for a couple of years, were doing a golf tournament, and one of the people on our board has a lot of experience with marketing. So she really took on that lead as the person who was going to be that event planner. And she was awesome. So again, I'm going back to relying on your network of people. But she really helped put together that the whole concept of the golf tournament. But having to go out and ask for donations for silent auctions, you're going out and asking your friends and your family and people in the community to donate things. We got assigned basketball. We got some tickets from one of the professional organizations down in LA. We got like a vacation stay at someone's vacation home. I mean, those are just things that you have to go out and ask for, right? And it's difficult. It's difficult to have to ask people for favors, right? Or for donations. So that, and I would say also just trying to reach the greater community. How do you get outside of your friend circle and your family circle? Because your friends and your family are amazing and they're going to support you, but how do you get that message out? So relying on social media. I'm still struggling with that. Like, how do I get the social media page to grow, right? How do I reach 10 million people?
Yeah.
I'm still working on that, but it's just word of mouth too. The more you promote it, the more people talk about it. So the more you can show you're doing, the more things you have to show, the more things you have to talk about. So yeah, I think that's probably the hardest part is getting it outside of your own community.
Right, definitely. So what has been the most helpful thing you've done to spread the nonprofit? Was it just word of mouth or your network?
Yeah, I think it's word of mouth. It's talking about it. So it's sharing my story a lot with people and not feeling guilty for doing that. Because, whenever you ask for things, I think sometimes we feel bad, like, oh, I'm imposing on this person by asking them, can you give me something? But yeah, I think it's getting over that fear of just feeling like I'm asking for things. And yeah, just talking about it as much as you can. And where do you share it, right? I'll post things on social media. I will talk to my friends about it. I'll ask my friends, can you repost this? We'll talk with the community at UCLA. Yeah, I mean, it's really just getting the word out and asking people to forward that communication.
Completely. And when you have faced some tough times or setbacks, how did you get through them?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest lesson I learned from Shane's life is that, you know, we have this one life to live, and you can have a setback, but the only way to get past that or to overcome that is to just keep going, or to reflect and think, okay, what can I do differently the next time? But there's always that inspiration for me. Like, my son didn't get the chance to live this life, so I'm going to do whatever I can to create this memory for him. And that, I think, is what inspires me to keep going, even when it does get tough, or when, you know, I think like I don't have enough followers, or I don't have this, or I don't have that, we aren't here, you know. It's not always about the numbers, it's about what you're doing for other people, because, you know, again, he didn't get this life to do that, so we're going to just do that for him. And anything we do, I think, is done with the intention to help people. So that's, I guess, what just gets me through those times.
That is so powerful and inspiring that you guys just live your lives through this.
Yeah, I think I said, yeah, like, thank you. No, I really, really appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say. Yeah, I think personally, with the way that I've learned to live my life after this, like, I mean, losing a child is something that no parent should ever have to do. And, you know, I live this every day. Like, every day I wake up and I'm like, I don't have my son. But I think if he's taught me anything, it's that we can control certain things in our lives. We can't control everything, but the things that we can control, why not do as much as we can with those things? Like,
Definitely.
as much effort as we can into those things that we can control, to make this world a little bit better. So
100%. You mentioned before that heart disease or any medical problems don't really choose gender or race or anything like that. So how do you address diversity through your nonprofit?
well, our nonprofit is really there to just help whoever needs something. So it's really open to anyone. UCLA's there's social worker that is tied to the pediatric cardiology unit is the one that we work with, and they're the ones that will help distribute those cards. So based on like monetary needs. So they're the ones that actually hand out the gift cards. We don't decide who gets them, but they're really there to help any family who needs money or needs help with gas, getting a child to an appointment, or a hotel room for something. Because I mean, we live that, so I know what it's like to have to go and have to be. My son was airlifted to UCLA the night he was born, and I couldn't go with him. But that's how urgent things have to happen sometimes. And so if parents can be able to go with them, I would never want a parent to not be able to stay near their child if they were having a emergency procedure, or even just a meal, because things happen so quickly. So we rely a lot on the social workers that you said to help us decide who gets those, but our foundation will give it to really anyone who asks. I mean, I even have had friends of friends who have reached out about friends or family that they had and will just donate a card, even if it's just to help them buy a meal because they're stuck in the hospital for 5 hours, you know, waiting out a surgery or whatever. So any way we can alleviate the experience is really what we're here for.
That is just great work you guys are doing. I mean, I can't even imagine being separated from a child like that. So using your
Yeah,
experience to help others is really
it's
powerful.
intense to have to be separated.
So those were a lot of tough questions, but now I have a few fun ones to end on. So
Okay.
what is the most rewarding part of running your own nonprofit?
I mean, the most rewarding part is just knowing that Shane's life is making someone else's life a little bit better. There have been families who have received assistance or a gift from Shane's Heart who have reached out, and we've become friends, and watching and seeing their children grow up and like thriving in their life, and knowing that Shane's life had some, maybe even a very small part of that, but you know, it's really rewarding to see that his life is still making an impact on other people, even though he isn't physically here. And for me, being his mom, the biggest thing that like it still like pains me to this day is that, you know, like I don't have a 10-year-old sitting next to me where I should have one, right? But seeing just, I guess, just knowing that even though he's been gone for 10 years, there's still a part of him, and people still talk about him, and people still know who he is. And that's huge. You know, he lived for 33 hours, but people still talk about him. So
That is super cool that you
yeah.
guys were able to do that. And if you could travel back in time to when you started the nonprofit and give yourself a piece of advice in all of it, running it and starting it and getting the word out, what would you say?
What would I say? Um, you know, I would say that, I mean, I don't know, like I still think I have these conversations with myself all the time. What would I do different, or what would
Yeah.
be my advice? I would just be like, there's always a way to keep things going. And I actually had that conversation with myself earlier this year because we had taken so much time off between our last fundraiser and now. And part of that is just life events, like things have happened in my life and in my ex-husband's life. And, but I think it's just the effort that you put in is the effort that you're going to see come out of it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's just advice I still give myself all the time.
And everyone should. That's a great
Yeah.
one to remember. So, what do you do when you accomplished a goal you're reaching towards, or maybe at the end of a big fundraiser? How do you celebrate?
I don't know that there is a celebration because it's just an ongoing thing. For as long as I live, I want to do something in the memory of my son.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's like ever been a celebration. Obviously, like when we've done big events like a golf tournament, I mean, I can't even thank the people in my life who have helped with these fundraisers. I can't even thank them enough. And even to this day, I can't thank my friends and my family enough for the support that they continue to give me. Just not even with the foundation per se, but just in my life. So it's just really finding a way to thank those people that have helped you and that continue to help you. But yeah, I mean, it's not like we have a wrap party or anything like that, but I think it's just finding a way to show your gratitude for everyone, because nonprofit organizations, you're not doing it for you, like to make your
Right.
life better. You're doing it to make someone else's life better. So I think the celebration is in seeing what your foundation is doing for the people or whatever cause you're supporting.
So lastly, what is your favorite word?
What is my favorite word? Oh, I think my favorite word is literally empathy. Um,
Wow.
because I feel like um, working in a nonprofit organization, and in our case, you know, looking at the children that our foundation is impacting and why, like if people could try to put themselves in the shoes of these patients or these families, um, to try to understand what they're going through, I think that is enough, I guess, reason, or there's that feeling of empathy, of knowing of, you know, this is something real, this is a reality for a lot of people. And I don't think we talk about, you know, we don't talk about death as much as we talk about birth, right?
Yeah.
We don't talk about losing children so much, and it happens, like it does happen to people, and it's happened to a lot of people that I've learned that have become a part of my life since having to go through this myself. But you know, having the ability to like put yourself in people's shoes, I think the experience of all of this has made me a more empathetic person, and so I feel a lot for other people. And I think that's kind of, again, what continues to drive my desire for the organization.
Wow, that was a really great answer. No one said anything like that before.
I mean, if we want to talk about inspirational words, I don't know if empathy is an inspirational word,
Empathy is
but
perfect. So those are all my questions. Do you have anything else you want to add or any last piece of advice for girls?
I would have told myself to ask these questions when I was younger, like you, because there are so many things in my life, and I'm not like that old, but I'm also not young. So, I mean, there are a lot of things where I was like, oh man, like maybe I should have like gone down that road, or maybe I should have done this. And it's like, I should have asked these questions when I was younger. Like you're doing that. So I think in anything that is sparking your interest right now, like how old are you? You're this group is for what, 13 to 18, or what
Yeah,
was
I'm
your
17. These are for middle school and beginning of high schoolers.
yeah, so sweet is really targeting that audience, right?
Hmm.
So I think, like, you know, even if your dreams change, just ask the questions, you know, and it's always okay to change later. I changed careers when I was 30, and it, you know, it was great. So you can always change, but ask the questions.
Definitely. Well, that was a great last piece of advice. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time for our interview today, and thank you for starting this incredible nonprofit.